Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes Hong Kong star Denmark I-7's interest surge following Dupont boost. Hong Kong stocks open firm, lifted by tech sector rally ahead of JD.com earnings. Canada pension cuts about 10% of HK jobs as China stocks slump. SHKP in pole position to benefit from Hong Kong's property easing measures. Mainland China, extension of Hong Kong solo visitor scheme gets lukewarm response. Hong Kong star Denmark I-7's interest surge following Dupont boost. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong Rugby Sevens player Max Denmark hopes the format will one day capture the same attention as its 15A side counterpart. After French scrum half Antoine Dupont opted out of the Six Nations tournament to represent his country in the HSBC SVNS Series Rugby, Denmark said the presence of high-profile players in sevens would help the format grow in popularity. Hong Kong, who missed out on Olympic qualification last year, are hoping for a strong performance in the World Rugby Challenger Series in Uruguay this week. Hong Kong stocks open firm, lifted by tech sector rally ahead of JD.com earnings. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong stocks have risen, led by the tech sector, with e-commerce giant JD.com's sharp gains ahead of its earnings report. However, investors are cautious due to the lack of any major stimulus announcement at China's annual parliamentary meeting. The Hang Seng Index jumped 1.4% to 16,393.44 at 11:10 a.m. local time, rebounding from Thursday's 2.6% fall. Canada pension cuts about 10% of HK jobs as China stocks slump. Bloomberg. Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, CPPIB, has cut around a dozen positions in its Greater China Equities team in Hong Kong, which represents nearly 10% of its Hong Kong staff. The affected employees will have their portfolios transferred to other investment teams. This move comes as banks and investment firms globally have been cutting jobs related to China due to the country's stock market slump and economic slowdown. However, recent data shows that the shift away from Chinese equities by global long-term investors has slowed, with some funds becoming less bearish. SHKP in pole position to benefit from Hong Kong's property easing measures. South China Morning Post. Sun Hung Kai Properties, SHKP, Hong Kong's largest developer by market capitalization, is expected to be the prime beneficiary of the removal of all property cooling measures in the city. The removal of the measures is expected to revive the property market and boost SHKP's sales, with the company aiming to achieve 23 billion Hong Kong dollars, $2.9 billion, in sales by 2024. Analysts believe that the company is likely to surpass this target due to the policy easing and several rate cuts expected in the U.S. Mainland China, extension of Hong Kong solo visitor scheme gets lukewarm response. South China Morning Post. The extension of the solo visitor scheme to Hong Kong to the mainland Chinese cities of Xi'an and Qingdao has generated a lukewarm response. Residents in the two mainland cities predicted the change would not drive more traffic to Hong Kong as the present arrangements were not much different, and travel agents said there had been no jump in bookings. Hundreds of social media users took to the X-like online networking tool Weibo and mainland version of Instagram Zaya Hongshu to question the need for the new policy, and highlighted that individual travelers who held group tour visas had made independent trips to Hong Kong for years. I don't understand the difference and significance of granting individual visas in cities that were previously restricted to group visas, one post on Zaya Hongshu said. Unless the multi-entry visa is granted, it seems like an unnecessary step. Essentially, nationwide group visa holders can travel independently to Hong Kong and Macau, with only a difference in the visa name. As she summons new productive forces, old questions linger for economy. Japan Times. China's leadership is looking to implement a new economic model based on innovation in advanced sectors. President Xi Jinping has coined the term new productive forces to describe this new model, which focuses on developing sectors such as electric vehicles, new materials, commercial spaceflight, quantum technology, and life sciences. Premier Li Qiang has vowed to support these industries in his annual report to China's legislature. This comes as China faces deep economic challenges and looks to revive its economy. FOC, Hong Kong should bid to host 2031 Women's World Cup with Macau, GBA cities. South China Morning Post. Kenneth Fok Kai Kong, one of Hong Kong's delegates to China's top legislature, has proposed a joint bid from Hong Kong, Macau, and cities in the Greater Bay Area to co-host the FIFA Women's World Cup in 2031. Fok highlighted the facilities already available in the region and said that a joint bid would be more feasible given Saudi Arabia's position as the sole bidder for the men's version in 2034. Fok also suggested the establishment of a Guangdong Hong Kong Macau Sports Bay Area to further promote sports in the region. With Hong Kong's property curbs over, keep an eye out for these 5 projects. South China Morning Post. The removal of property curbs in Hong Kong has led to a sharp rebound in the volume of home sales. Agents reported over 580 property transactions in the primary market between Sunday and the announcement of curb relaxations last Wednesday. There is a pipeline for a potential housing supply of 109,000 units, ensuring a wide range of options for prospective buyers. 5 highly anticipated residential launches in Hong Kong include Wheelock Properties Seasons Place, Lohas Parks Phase 12A, Wong Sun Hing Group's Kowloon Bay Project, CK Asset Holdings and MTR Corp's Blue Coast and Henderson Land Developments Parkwood. Hong Kong weightlifting bosses accused of creating a living hell for athletes. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong lawmaker Adrian Pedro Ho King Hong has called for government intervention in response to allegations that the Hong Kong Weightlifting and Powerlifting Association has withheld athletes' funding and failed to develop the sports adequately. Athletes, including Masahito Kitsui and Raymond Fong Chai Chi, have accused the association of withholding government funds and demanding high coaching fees. The association denies these accusations and claims that the athletes volunteered to pay coaching staff. Ho has called for the government to regulate the association and improve the promotion of weightlifting and powerlifting in Hong Kong. Asia stocks set for mixed open after U.S. tech slide, markets wrap. Bloomberg. Asian stocks are set to open mixed following a slump in U.S. equities on Tuesday. Australian shares edged down and futures for Japan and Hong Kong indicated losses and gains respectively. The S&P 500 dropped by 1% and the Nasdaq 100 slipped by almost twice as much. Bitcoin hit a record before reversing, while gold also reached an all-time high. U.S.-listed Chinese shares fell for a second day following a disappointing budget announcement, according to Morgan Stanley strategists. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is set to testify before Congress on Wednesday. South Korea keeps gaining as Ukraine war drags on. Bloomberg. South Korea's growing reputation as a reliable arms supplier is set to continue, as global demand for weapons increases due to escalating tensions around the world. South Korean supplier Hanwha Aerospace has seen its revenue for land-based systems double to $3.1 billion last year, with overseas sales expected to continue growing. The company's backlog of export orders has jumped tenfold, and Poland is in talks to buy 54 of its self-propelled howitzers. The country is positioning itself as a major player in the international arms market, but should also focus on its tech expertise, according to Bloomberg. Globe journalists Robert Fife, Stephen Chase win Ross Munro Award. The Globe and Mail. 2 journalists from the Globe and Mail have been awarded the Ross Munro Award for their coverage of foreign interference in Canada. Robert Fife and Stephen Chase were recognized for their reporting on allegations of Chinese interference in Canadian elections, as well as for their coverage of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's claim that India was involved in the assassination of a Sikh activist. The award is presented by the Ottawa-based CDA Institute and recognizes excellence and objectivity in defense or national security reporting. The journalists' work included stories based on top-secret and secret intelligence reports that detailed Chinese attempts to influence Canadian politics and Indian involvement in the assassination of the Sikh activist. Air pollution kills 1 million a year, hundreds of whom are Australians. The Sydney Morning Herald. Short-term exposure to air pollution, including bushfire smoke, dust, and other pollutants, kills more than 1 million people globally each year, according to a study by Monash University researchers. The study examined the impacts of short-lived episodes of air pollution on health, finding that an average of 614 people in Australia and New Zealand lost their lives every year between 2000 and 2019 due to short-term exposure to fine particle air pollution. The study also found that Asia accounted for 65% of global deaths due to short-term exposure to air pollution. Toyota UPS its bet on hybrids in Brazil with $2.2 billion plan. Bloomberg. Toyota is investing BRL 11 billion, $2.2 billion, in its Brazilian operations between 2023 and 2030 to expand production capacity for flex-fuel hybrid vehicles. The investment will be used to manufacture a new compact hybrid flex vehicle, with production set to begin in 2025, as well as develop another model specifically for Brazil. Batteries will also be assembled at the Toyota factory in Sorocaba starting in 2026. The investment comes as Toyota's competitors, including General Motors, Volkswagen, and Hyundai, also invest in Brazil to electrify their product lines. Brazil's government has also introduced incentives for new technologies. Chinese money can't be solution for cash-strapped Canadian miners, minister says. Bloomberg. Canada's Natural Resources Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson, has stated that Chinese investment is not the solution for Canadian miners seeking financial backing. This comes as Chinese firms have been pursuing investments in Canadian junior mining companies, despite tougher federal government rules imposed in 2022. Canada and its allies have been discouraging efforts by China to deepen ties in domestic critical minerals companies. Transactions such as Zijin Mining Group's plans to take a stake in Solaris Resources and Intai Gold's agreement to buy Osino Resources have been testing Canada's national security rules. Wilkinson stated that while the crackdown may not have completely dissuaded the Chinese, they will all have to go through a national security review. Well, folks, that wraps up today's news from Hong Kong. We had everything from rugby sevens to property easing measures, weightlifting controversies to South Korea's arms industry. It's safe to say there's never a dull moment in this city. Now, let's dive into some analysis. First up, we had Hong Kong Rugby Sevens player Max Denmark hoping for a surge of interest in the format following the participation of high-profile players like Antoine Dupont. Well, Max, I think it's safe to say that Sevens has a long way to go before it captures the same attention as its 15A side counterpart. But hey, anything is possible. Moving on to the stock market, Hong Kong stocks opened firm thanks to a rally in the tech sector. The lack of major stimulus announcements at China's annual parliamentary meeting did make investors a bit cautious, but it seems like the tech sector is leading the charge for now. In other news, Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, CPPIB, has cut around 10% of its Hong Kong staff due to the slump in China's stock market. It's no secret that banks and investment firms globally have been cutting jobs related to China, but it seems like the shift away from Chinese equities by global long-term investors has slowed. So maybe things aren't as bad as they seem. Sun Hung Kai Properties, SHKP, Hong Kong's largest developer, is expected to be the prime beneficiary of the removal of property cooling measures in the city. Analysts believe that the company will surpass its sales target due to the policy easing and expected rate cuts in the US. So if you're in the property market, keep an eye on SHKP. The extension of the solo visitor scheme to Hong Kong to the mainland Chinese cities of Xi'an and Qingdao has generated a lukewarm response. It seems like residents in the mainland cities and travel agents aren't too excited about the change. Maybe they're just used to traveling to Hong Kong on group tour visas? China's leadership is looking to implement a new economic model based on innovation in advanced sectors. President Xi Jinping has come up with the term New Productive Forces to describe this model, which focuses on developing sectors like electric vehicles, quantum technology, and life sciences. It's an ambitious plan, but with the economic challenges China is facing, they're willing to try anything. Kenneth Fok Kai Kong, one of Hong Kong's delegates to China's top legislature, has proposed a joint bid from Hong Kong, Macau, and cities in the Greater Bay Area to co-host the FIFA Women's World Cup in 2031. Fok highlighted the facilities already available in the region and suggested the establishment of a Guangdong Hong Kong Macau Sports Bay Area. It sounds like a winning idea to me. With the removal of property curbs in Hong Kong, the volume of home sales has rebounded. Prospective buyers now have a wide range of options, with 5 highly anticipated residential launches in the pipeline. If you're looking to buy a home, keep an eye out for Wheelock Properties Seasons Place, Lohas Parks Phase 12A, Wong Sun Hing Group's Kowloon Bay Project, CK Asset Holdings and MTR Corp's Blue Coast, and Henderson Land Development's Parkwood. In sports news, Hong Kong weightlifting bosses have been accused of creating a living hell for athletes. Lawmaker Adrian Pedro Ho King Hong has called for government intervention in response to allegations of withheld funding and inadequate development of the sport. It's a tough situation, but hopefully, the government can step in and make things right. Now, let's turn our attention to the global stage. Asian stocks are set to open mixed following a slump in U.S. equities. Bitcoin hit a record before reversing, and gold reached an all-time high. It seems like the markets are a bit unpredictable at the moment, but that's what keeps things interesting, right? South Korea is continuing to gain a reputation as a reliable arms supplier as global demand for weapons increases. South Korean supplier Hanwha Aerospace has seen its revenue for land-based systems double, and overseas sales are expected to continue growing. It's important for South Korea to focus on its tech expertise as well, to solidify its position in the international arms market. 2 journalists from the Globe and Mail have been awarded the Ross Munro Award for their coverage of foreign interference in Canada. Robert Fife and Stephen Chase were recognized for their reporting on allegations of Chinese interference in Canadian elections and Indian involvement in the assassination of a Sikh activist. It's great to see journalists being recognized for their excellent and objective reporting. Air pollution is a serious issue, and a study by Monash University researchers has found that short-term exposure to air pollution kills over 1 million people globally each year. Australia and New Zealand have seen an average of 614 deaths per year due to short-term exposure to fine particle air pollution. It's a stark reminder of the importance of addressing this problem and finding sustainable solutions. Toyota is investing billions in its Brazilian operations to expand production capacity for flex-fuel hybrid vehicles. As other automakers also invest in Brazil to electrify their product lines, it's clear that the country is becoming a key player in the global shift towards cleaner transportation. It's great to see these investments in new technologies and the incentives provided by the Brazilian government. And finally, Canada's Natural Resources Minister has stated that Chinese investment is not the solution for Canadian miners seeking financial backing. With tougher federal government rules in place, Chinese firms have been pursuing investments in Canadian junior mining companies. Canada and its allies have been cautious about deepening ties with China in domestic critical minerals companies. It's a delicate balance, but it seems like Canada is taking national security seriously. Phew, that was quite a news roundup. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these stories. Do you think Sevens Rugby will ever capture the same attention as 15A side? What do you make of the removal of property cooling measures in Hong Kong? And what are your views on China's new economic model based on innovation? Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below, And let's keep the discussion going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.